Could Turkey and Israel go to war? Military scenarios analyze the two most likely scenarios in which Turkey and Israel would go to war are over the Gaza Strip and over the Golan Heights. Let's examine each of them. If war does break out between Turkey and Israel, it will be over the Gaza Strip. Well, there are two things to consider here. First, such an invasion would unify the Palestinians and the Jordanians against Israel, and we all know how important it is for Israel to have Jordan on its side. You see, Jordan is the only country besides Egypt that shares a border with Israel and has good relations with it. That's because unlike the other Arab countries, Jordan has a peace treaty with Israel. In fact, many Israelis visit Jordan every year. But if Israel were to invade Gaza, then Jordan would be forced to side with the Palestinians, which means that Israel would lose its biggest ally in the region. Not to mention the massive influx of refugees that would pour into Jordan, which is already struggling to cope with the Syrian refugees. Secondly, it would unify the entire Muslim world against it. We're talking about a potential coalition of armies from Iran, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Libya, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Not to mention the millions of angry Muslims who would rise up in protest. Israel simply cannot win such a war, so an invasion of Gaza is highly unlikely. First, Israel occupies around 90% of the Golan Heights, so Turkey doesn't really stand to gain anything by invading. Second, the Syrian army is stationed there, which means that Turkey would have to contend with Russia's air force if it were to attack. So yeah, it's highly unlikely that Turkey would invade the Golan Heights anytime soon. Why? Because that's where the bulk of Turkey's military forces are located. As of 2021, the Turkish military has around 28,000 troops stationed in Gaza, not to mention thousands more from the Turkish paramilitary force, the MIT. In comparison, Israel has around 6,500 soldiers stationed in the Gaza Strip, which means that Israel is outnumbered almost 5 to 1. So if Turkey were to invade Gaza, Israel would surely lose. What's more, Turkey controls the only 2 border crossings into Gaza, while Israel only has 1. This means that in terms of logistics, Turkey has the advantage because it can supply its troops via land and sea, whereas Israel would have to rely on airdrops. But Israel has a secret weapon in this scenario, and that's the United States. The U.S. military has bases all over the Middle East, including 3 in Israel. They are home to a combined total of around 55,000 troops. So if the U.S. were to get involved, then Turkey would definitely lose. But even without the U.S., Israel still has an advantage over Turkey and Gaza. You see, Israel has the Iron Dome, an incredibly effective missile defense system that can intercept incoming rockets and artillery fire. It's not 100% efficient, but it's pretty damn close. And Turkey knows this. So if Israel were to activate the Iron Dome, then Turkey would have to contend with incoming laser-guided missiles that could take out entire platoons at once. That's why Turkey wouldn't dare invade Gaza. The Gaza Strip. This is the most likely scenario. What about the Golan Heights? But what if Israel were to invade Gaza first? Well, that's highly unlikely as well, for 2 reasons. This is the real difference between Turkey and Israel.